back in Beijing for game number 2 between JDG and SinoDragons. JDG took charge from 20 minutes on and never looked back. Hello and welcome back. My name is Xiaopeng. This is Jimmy Preacher Fu. And after that game number 1, zoom on Vladimir. Another box to tick away as to who to ban because he was MVP and a well-deserved MVP. Between that and Yagao, I mean, who do you even pick at that point?
Look, it's really difficult, but the fact that he was solo laning against Changhong and even managed to solo kill him by the end of the match, I think that pretty much deserves a spot for him because he was lifting everything that his team needed.
It was rough there for Changhong as well because he got the first blood, he got himself off the map, Xiaopeng got up there as well. But JDG just continued to have this momentum behind them, and it's Zoom and Yagao once again. At the start of this year, we were like, well, maybe JDG, you know, they don't look as strong as they have before, and it was very fair considering that we saw the changes in jungle. You know, JDG lost themselves Clid. They also lost themselves Loken over to TOP, and now it's like, all right, who's filling the spots? Oh, Flawless, Levi, Imp's there as well.
That's what I wanted to touch on, right? Yeah, Imp is back. He's remolding the entire team. They've moved away from B-Boy, and honestly, Imp is looking so much better than he has at the start. That's what really explains a whole lot of the discrepancies in terms of the statistics. So I really think that you need to describe it as before week 5 and after week 5 to take a look at the stat differences to make sure that these two players are actually playing very well.
Yeah, potentially Imp was very quiet that game as well. We talked heavily to you guys about GALA versus Imp in that very first game, but even on the Tristana, even on the Kai'Sa, it didn't get to a point where they could actually get into the fights. Apart from Imp maybe, who just ulted into everyone anyway and just was pretty much a nuisance. But
I mean, yeah, that's just Imp things, right? When he finds the advantage, he really goes for it. He's not really somebody who waits to pull the trigger because he's been trained into that. He won a world championship based on that. And realistically, when he comes into this sort of team, he does the damage when he needs to, and when he doesn't, he just becomes a threat. So he's fitting in very well. But it's still the Dumpling brothers that we have to talk about because they did lift their weight.
Yagao, Zoom, fantastic. Zoe needs to be banned against Yagao. There are many times in a series that has gone through. You find game 2 and game 3s where you're just like, I remember now. But instead of the ban of, we saw, I think we saw Rek'Sai banned away.
Important though.
We saw, Lucian's banned away as well.
Yeah, so those are the ones that either benefit so much from the Conqueror changes or from the Spirit Shojin. But right now they need to go very specific.
Also, with the Rek'Sai as well, both Flawless and Levi in the past have been Rek'Sai players.
Of course.
Back in the Season 8. Yeah, you test me, ladies and gentlemen. But there's some distinguished games where Flawless and Levi have both picked it out when it hasn't been, as popularized as maybe it is now.
So I'm going to put a caveat onto that one because if you're going far back into history and using Rek'Sai as a sample, then the question has to be, is it their specific champion or were they playing it because it's in meta? Now, they did play it very well, don't forget, especially Levi. Levi's Rek'Sai is amazing, his ability to especially get priority over objectives. However, the fact that they are playing it currently and the fact that it's so high priority that both of these teams would rather ban it than have it on the map shows that these junglers...
It has a great mix with Conqueror as well on that note too. So if we're talking about Conqueror champions, Rek'Sai just feels fantastic with it. As Raz mentioned a couple of weeks ago as well, with Hail of Blades, Rek'Sai feels fantastic too. And Hail of Blades is still fine. There is absolutely no problem with it. We see it on the Xinjiao here, honestly, in the LPL. We see a couple of champions that pick it up. The Kalista as well. We see in the bottom lane, which Kalista is still a priority in 9.4. And we've seen the transition over in the LEC, over in NA as well, I believe. And even LCK.
Yeah, I mean, both of these two ADCs, especially Imp, right? Imp is really known as a good Kalista player, the mechanics coming out from this player. However, the fact that we're coming into crit items, while Kalista can go the Runaan's Hurricane with the Infinity Edge, it's just not as strong as Blazether King.
Yeah, so, I mean, Infinity Edge Kalista, I mean, that's a bit of a doozy.
I've seen it before. It doesn't work out too well because it doesn't synergize with E.
Whereas we see the transition from other AD carries like the Kai'Sa going for the Infinity Edge first. Now, of course, that game we saw the double pickaxe, which is quite common. I do apologize. So, double pickaxe there, so you set yourself up for the Guinsus as well, so that you have yourself a very quick 1-2 item power spike.
It's not really something that you pick up because you want the double pickaxe. You pick it up because you don't have enough gold to finish off the Infinity Edge. If he had 1225 gold, he would have gone back and he would have got the IE, but instead he wanted to get the best out of it, and it was better to pick up the pickaxe than to pick up something like the Crit Cloak that doesn't really give him anything before he builds the IE. Yeah, it was a pretty smart back.
The Cloak of Agility's back, ladies and gentlemen. That's exciting, isn't it? We all miss that. that item. But
did you?
Yeah, of course I did. Top side of the map though, let's briefly touch on Zoom a little bit more because Zoom's Vladimir is good. Is it ban worthy? Or I don't know. There's a lot of champions you have to ban with Zoom, but the quality of top laners this split still puts me as a favorite for. Okay, I go the Shy number 1. Number 2, I go. Probably Zoom still.
You reckon? I mean, he put up an MVP performance in that last game. There are going to be no substitutions coming into this one, which is very important because all of the plays that we saw happening on the map were not isolated, so to speak, but a part of each other.
I mean, I'm glad we don't have any subs because Zoom doesn't have a sub. You know, who were they pulling in? Well, it's Mr. Hysterics is going in over Zoom. You know, I'm going to travel over to Beijing and just
yeah, no, that's
going
to be a hard pull from that one. No, I'm not going to really...
You haven't seen my Vladimir. You have not seen my Vladimir.
No, I'm pretty sure I have, which is why I bet against you. But going back to the point, he's now got 3 MVPs under his belt because of all of these high-performance plays that he's made. And I just want to see whether he goes once again for the split push match because that was facilitated by the side of Sino, or if he goes for his own playstyle.
It was facilitated by the junglers. The 2v2 in the top lane was the priority in that game. And the difference was that Flawless on the Kindred revisited, pushed it out, pressured it, gave a kill back to JDG. Whereas Xiaopeng visited it once, burned the summoners, even got the kill for his top lane Gangplank and never came back. Xiaopeng had different priorities across the map. He tried to split his focus between mid and bot, and it just never seemed like he had an answer for either of them, where Flawless was very constituted in what he was going to do.
And that's really what we need to see out of him, because Xiaopeng is always known for the early game to make sure that he can get his laners ahead. But if it happens on the other side as well, then what really is his advantage in the matchup? And you got to say, it looks very, very trifling, because of course there's a little bit of extra damage coming out on the other side. Teamfight's not looking the best for him.
I'm glad he's picked up the Jarvan though. That's a change we've seen in late 9.2 to 9.4. I'm so glad we'll never have to talk about 9.3, even though it was a very important patch. But the Jarvan has just been rising in success in the LPL, and Tian is probably the best Jarvan player so far, but I'm glad to see we're seeing some of the more rookie junglers like Xiaopeng pull it out. I am assuming Flawless will pick it out because he's picked it out before, especially when we had, you know, like a Camille Jarvan meta where we had very aggressive early game gank junglers.
And honestly, like, LPL is known as the league of playmaking, and Jarvan is definitely a playmaking champion. I mean, look at the first game. It happened within the first 3 minutes. Jarvan goes topside, flash for flash, and he manages to get the kill as well. All of these rookies, if they want to make a name for themselves, get themselves a highlight reel, that's how you do it. You pick up the job.
Or you get in the LPL and you just keep on playing. I mean, that's how you...
I mean, you'll get it eventually.
Eventually. That's kind of the story with SinoDragons, eventually. Remember, strength of schedule, something we talk about heavily. FPX coming up next. And the way FPX are playing against SinoDragon, you're going to say, well, that's rough. V5 even a thorn in their path. RNG, Suning. Big matchup here for SinoDragon. It's week number 7 and we're to the edge of playoffs where Suning are just sitting outside. There are a couple of teams who are contesting it like Victory 5 as well. And every loss is going to haunt them. That's why SinoDragon need to recover, bring that early game back into fruition. We'll see the priority on junglers and what Xiaopeng can actually find in the first rotation, because this time around, it looks quite similar with the GALA banned away, and of course the Rek'Sai again from JDG on red side.
I am begging for these two teams to really change up the bans to make sure that they go more targeted.
Well,
I like the Vladimir coming out, but like you alluded to, of course the Zoe is still open, and if it's not first picked away by SinoDragon, which I highly doubt they'll do, I don't even doubt that JD will do it.
Well, that's good. They have first picked the Zoe. Jace is banned too by JDG, so it sets it up nicely. We know that the Jace is a big flex here in the LPL, and I'm just going to say LPL really started this flex Jace, and it's kind of just been sitting through this patch as well. There's a double pick of JDG going the Jarvan, the Alistar, changing things up. Flawless has snuck that away. SinoDragon responding with Flawless's pick in the Kindred. A quick pick and ban.
Yeah, this is all just denial picks from this point onwards, Hysterics. They take away the Zoe, they take away the Kindred as well. What else can they potentially remove from Jingdong to make them feel uncomfortable? But right now, it's not really feeling uncomfortable as it is just a straight trade. Because we know that Flawless is very comfortable on the Jarvan as well. He makes a whole lot of early game plays on this champion that we've seen. So, it's not the biggest worry in the world for them, although this could potentially be.
I mean, they go back to the Braum, they go back to what they know. That means that GALA isn't prioritizing that first phase again, but we're seeing patterns here in the LPL's first series on 9.4, first English broadcast of 9.4. What is left open? Lissandra actually comes through. An interesting pickup here from most likely Yagao.
And I'm kind of worried for these players because none of them are really picking up the magic dealers with the Conqueror that we were alluding to. It's still very strong in this patch, but of course they want to do the things that their team is best known for. ADC position still available for both of these two teams, so obviously that'll be the point of contention. I want to see where Kaiser goes, whether it's on the ban list or whether it goes to Imp again.
On your note of Conquerors as well, you got to remember that the patch over here, we have only just come back into 9.4 as of last week, so the pro players have only had about a week, and of course a lot of them do go and scrim over on the Korean server, so they've had even longer, further to my point, to kind of counteract my own point as well. So especially on the Chinese server, if a lot of these guys are just playing locally, then they've only had a week to play around with it. So I feel like we give a bit more time to the LPL players and we see what progresses. But you're right, with a lot of AD carries being banned out, there is an option to go into that Cassiopeia if it is in the bottom lane with Conquerors. So we'll see who's feeling hot.
Yeah, Cassiopeia, Kaiser, Ezreal, those are the holy trinity right now that Kalista is banned off the board. So here we go.
Oh, yeah.
They got the one game padding and they just want to flex it.
Imp had a very good game against CDG in game number 1, although it wasn't a win. I liked the tempo that he built up here on Vayne. SinoDragon might just respond with ipso facto, let's pick up the Kai'Sa, which originally Vayne was picked as a counter into the Kai'Sa lane, but ever since it's been pretty even, pretty fine.
And GALA's even looking very, very fine on this champion, because GALA is not really known as a Vayne player, of course, but he is very heavily known as a Kai'Sa player. I like this matchup, but it's got to be with a huge if, because Tristana, while she does scale better, we didn't see the scaling come out of the very first game, and not a lot indicates that the second game has anything to be changed.
Doesn't. Are we going to see a blind Gangplank once again in the final pick? Didn't go too well for Changhong last game. I don't really feel we saw anything but the cannon barrage. And as soon as Changhong joined the fight, it was already over. So see if you can get an early enough lead in this game. JDG, the final pick, that's a Ryze. So that's probably going to be, yeah, Zoom, Ryze top lane.
Yeah, double mages for 2 games so far, Hysterics. I think that Zoom is looking to be the best counter that JD has against SinoDragons, because they've left this Ryze until last pick after his MVP performance. They know that whatever Sino want to pick up, whether it's Gangplank or something else, it can be responded to. Ryze has a fairly decent time into the Gangplank, especially with the range autos that can pop the barrels before the parlay can. So I want to see what Zoom can do in the laning phase to completely oppress Changhong before he even gets to that Trinity Force.
Super easy as well to build yourself up a Sonya's here in this lane, or at least the Seeker's Armor Guard nice and early for Zoom. But he had a very successful game on the Vladimir in the first one. Second time around, we're still on one of those control mages. We're still on the ability to pop people. Both Zoom and Yagao play this champion, so it's always precarious when you see Ryze locked in for JDG. But we also see that Yagao's most played champion is the Lissandra next to the Zoe. So this time, you know, Twila has to make a good case for it, because Lissandra still a pain to deal with, and one that Yagao knows very well how to deal with, especially since he's going against one of his more proficient champions.
Yeah, I mean, it's out of the frying pan and into the fire. You take away the Zoe from him and you put on his most played champion in the Lissandra. So of course you're going to be running into problems here regardless, but at least you've got the Zoe for yourself. So that is the highlight out of the first pick coming out. I think that the best way that they could utilize this is to potentially catch out the Lissandra with the fact that she doesn't have an easy dash to get out of the Sleepy Trouble Bubble.
I mean, she has a bloody great dash. She has a claw that looks like a dragon's
foot.
Foot.
But it takes like a year to do, so you can't dodge out of it.
The glacial part, but you can finish channeling it whenever you want.
It's not instant. That's my point. It's not instant. You can't dodge out of the trouble bubble, and that's what.
But these guys get paid to play League of Legends. I'm sure he'll find a way, Preacher. Surely.
To make his whatever.
Yeah, that's right. If you back down here, then I'm going to tell you one thing. You can't back down in game, because we're going to see the matchup head-to-head, SinoDragon and JDG for game number 2. There is a lot of pressure here for JDG to quell up some of the inconsistencies and bring themselves into a 2-0 series to lead them up into Vici, into Suning, and their path to playoffs. So, of course, you're hearing the repetition. That's, of course, because the sound of the audience is going through the speakers and repeating. Not because they just want to hear JDG a couple of more times, but we are in their home arena. JDG always goes first. And this time an Airy on Twila's Zoe mid. So, playing it a lot safer. We still see a couple of Aftershock users as well. And a Klepto back on Gangplank.
And the more interesting thing that I want to point out is that Xiaopeng has opted to go for the Conqueror. So we're finally seeing it on the jungle, especially for the Kindred. Somebody who's known to do a whole lot of damage. Now she can have a bit of survivability in these fights as well.
Very true. So we'll see how Press the Attack affects the Kindred build, or rather maybe affects the early jungling. Last game, Flawless picked up the Press the Attack on the Kindred, so we're seeing the responses from different teams on the same champion. I'm still surprised we do see a Klepto Gangplank in the top lane feeling confident against a Ryze matchup, as Yagao actually takes a little bit too much damage in that trade. That's Corrupting Potion for you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to point out. This mid lane is going to be very difficult for the Lissandra. Once again, unless there's any jungle interference, I can't see a good way for it to come back out of this, especially seeing as it's the Aftershock Lissandra, which is much more oriented towards the mid-game team fights than it is for the laning phase. This is going to be more or less just Twila oppressing Yagao and seeing how well Yagao can dodge out to make sure that he can spend the most time in lane before he's forced to back.
I mean, he's got teleport as well, so the difference is you have double teleport on the side of JDG, only one in Changhong. As Changhong actually pushing into this turret with the help of his jungler nearby. This could be a very severe gank, but Zoom doing actually okay in the matchup despite getting pushed in.
Yeah, and it's a raised 1 strategy where Jingdong can legitimately do a 1-3-1 in this game as opposed to the 1-4 that only Changhong can split with. So if it gets to the ultra late game, there's going to be so much threat available. And when you take a look at the fact that Alistar is going to be part of the 3, it's not even a very weak 3.
We are not even in the early game yet, but Xiaopeng are going to get jumped on rather late game. Flawless onto the Scuttle, does steal it away, secures at level 3 on both junglers. Twila's coming in as well, the sandwich is there. Glacial Path away, but Troll Bubbles onto the Jarvan. He flags, he drags, Xiaopeng flashes, he jumps, he dots. And SinoDragons jungler just needs one more hippity-hoppity. There it goes, the droppity. Where is Flawless going? Well, to the death. First blood for SinoDragon.
Get off my property, even though that was a nice little steal coming out onto the Scuttle Crab. Xiaopeng still re-engages with the help of Twila and the lockdown from the Sleepy Trouble Bubble and the red buff. That's all he needed to chase down this J4.
First blood again going to SinoDragon, but this time it's on the terms of Xiaopeng, or rather it was the reaction play rather than him visiting a lane. Now what happens? Because he's burnt the flash, so has Flawless. What lane does he visit? What does he start moving here for SinoDragons early game?
I would be taking a look at the bottom side of the map, Hysterics. You've got great engage coming out from the Braum. If you can get the Winter's Bite off, you can proc the stun. And also, if you get into the mid lane, Twila, we said that she has a very good time landing the Sleepy Trouble Bubbles or even using them to zone. So both of those two are prime targets for Xiaopeng to use his newfound gold onto.
He looks to maybe find Flawless at his own jungle. This is ambitious from the Jarvan. Xiaopeng, as soon as he gets this as well, should be level 4. Let's see if my math is correct. No, ladies and gentlemen, do not take math lessons from an Australian.
Oh man, I'd say that my math is pretty good, it's just you. But yeah, he still manages to lock that one down regardless. Look, this is very aggressive play coming out from Flawless. He knows that he's behind. He knows that he needs to come back onto the map, and the best form that he can do so is to go into the enemy jungle and try to steal that away. He wasn't anticipating the fact that Xiaopeng could have come back so soon and specifically gone to the bottom side of his map, which he realistically should have, because that's the best place that he can set it up for, and he just gets caught and a lot of time wasted.
Flawless is here instead. This is a smart outmaneuver, but it's going to struggle to really get into this lane unless there's an engage here from JDG, but Flawless is up towards the top side of the river. No triangular ward here.
And this is also very difficult for him, because there's not a lot of good angles for him to come in on. GALA can just jump out, and Mark can join him. So the fact that he's committed so many resources down to the bottom side, and he's still only level 3 compared to Xiaopeng's level 4, if Xiaopeng finds him, this is very, very risky.
I mean, that level difference is Flawless going to go in, or is he going to back away? Slows down the jungler, jumps on back in anyway. Mark should drop here to the side of him, but will Lumao as well? Yes. There's a reset here for GALA as he jumps back in onto Flawless. Already 2 kills for SinoDragon. Reset City again. GALA has the range. One more bit of hit. And it's Xiaopeng, even under the turret. He survives. 3 quick kills, SinoDragons way.
That's what we were expecting. The level difference and also the engage difference. The fact that Mark went in first in order to try and take down the team fights works out so well for his team. A Braum tanking up everything is better than anything else tanking it up. And Lumao being on the responding end of that is frankly speaking too slow for the matchup.
It's really rough because Xiaopeng now has 3 kills after that quick trade. And if you wanted to see what Conquerors on Kindred is going to do, well, you've definitely got your game for it. Flawless is now a level behind consistently and even farm behind.
I mean, he's using it as a great targets. Using it into a J4 and also using it into an Alistar. Both of those two champions take forever to kill, especially in the late game, if the Jarvan starts to build a little bit tanky. So the fact that you got the Conqueror, it means that you're putting down early game damage for sure, but it's even that late game that the enemy should be scared of.
Yeah, you have Warriors there as well early for the Kindred. Infernal Dragon starts first. That was a Cannon Barrage just to push out the wave, so SinoDragon not really feeling the heat, but Xiaopeng isn't towards the top side of this map. You saw just before Flawless was trying to be as well, but now he has to catch back up on some much-needed experience here in his own jungle.
Yeah, and this is going to be really, really devastating for Flawless because 0-2 Jarvan, my prime question is which build is he going to go into? He's put so far back, he could even go into the Cinderhulk build, which does a little bit less damage, but means he's at least relevant if any team fights break out anytime soon. It would be one of the more punishing things that could happen to Jingdong, but if he went for the Warriors, then that means that his whole team needs to extend the laning phase to make sure that he can use it.
I mean, most likely, oh, hello. Just a nice way to take blue there from Twila.
Very long range.
Probably going to be the Cinderhulk as we've seen regularly. Electrocute damage should supplement that nicely, but has now caught back up to level 5, so you can see the priority now from Flawless. Just moving away from the bottom side, walking through vision, so they'll know that Flawless is towards that bottom side blue buff. Xiaopeng in the exact same area. Now level 6 as well, so Lamb's Spite available with a 3-0 Kindred. You go, well, if we find her, we run.
And there's a legitimate worry for Jingdong in the early game because the first dragon available is Infernal, so both of these two junglers will have their prime eyes on it. Nobody's got vision on it thus far.
Well, there is a control ward in the back of the pit from SinoDragon, but that's so hard to get for JDG, so there's safety here from Xiaopeng.
Yeah, he just wants to make sure that if there is a fight that happens around the Dragon Pit, he can always be the first person to have an advantage over it. Already getting access to his ultimate, whereas Flawless is farming up to get to his level 6 stage, it just means that Kindred needs to be ahead at all points, and he can do that easily by farm.
I mean, it's super rough because still for SinoDragon, they can make their way into these lanes. With the Zoe, with the Gangplank, all lanes that are slowly getting pushed in. There's a lot of easy access here for the Kindred, especially considering you're on the blue side right now, or red side rather, his own. You can jump over that wall. Can you? No, you can't.
No, I think this is just going to be a Dragon Take coming out from Xiaopeng. He knows that Jarvan is going off onto the top side. Changhong is in trouble.
I mean, if he can clear this wave, maybe he can outplay. Cannon Barrage is not available, however. It's such a long cooldown, wave dropping down as well. Flawless hits him. Flag doesn't hit. Flawless on the turret has to flash away. Flash from Changhong. Gets isolated in place. Yagao may get a trade, but Changhong, he got the balls of steel.
And even though that was a 1-for-1, it still comes out in the advantage of SinoDragon. They got the Infernal Drake, and they're getting even more gold down into the mid lane. So even trades of the turret plating works out.
The wave was pushed up as well. Zoom shouldn't be able to get too much turret plating off the back of it. And Changhong should have teleport soon. And the Gangplank getting the top with the first kill of the game to still Xiaopeng being an issue. The early game seems to be filled up here for SinoDragon. 3k gold lead at 9 minutes in the game. That Infernal went down. There's a double coming up here with availability still because of this pushing bottom lane.
Yeah, and a huge question that you need to ask in terms of the JD crew is who exactly is getting the gold. MVP of last game in Zoom has not got the kill. So while he is ahead in CS, he needs more resources in order to have an MVP performance in this game.
I mean, he's still stacking up that tier, probably waiting for the teleport so he can do something with this bottom lane. No deep vision in those bottom side brushes, so the options are definitely limited here for the Ryze in the top lane, but Zoom will keep farming up. We know what Ryze can be at that 1-2 item point. We also know what Zoom can be specifically as well, further to your point. Yagao has been quiet this game too, so the Dumpling Brothers both just waiting for their moment to get into this game, while SinoDragon keep playing with their moment already in this game.
And it might not be the two junglers match to match, as it is the difference that Kindred makes into both of these two comps. Xiaopeng is having the game of his life so far. I mean, take a look at that. 3-0-1. The fact that he is so far ahead means that he's going to apply so much pressure. And the fact that he can even farm and keep up his level in comparison to Flawless, and that be pressure alone, is too much to deal with.
Definitely is. Twila is not a good position, has to flash away. Flawless trying to be proactive once again with the Cannon Barrage coming down, Sleeping Trap Bubble as well. Yagao blocks him, but the heal comes back in. Two-man Pulverize, Cataclysm back on into the Lambs, despite JDG are going to benefit from this. Not a good ultimate from Kindred, already goes down. JDG's Yagao burns with the Ignite, but a double going over to Vayne. And this for JDG is their entrance back into game 2.
Very questionable engage coming out, and it favors Jingdong. They want to go for the fight, but over on the bottom side, SinoDragons were just pushing this. So GALA is getting so much free gold for himself that he's not sharing with his support. And more to the point, if he manages to get that first turret with his explosive shot, even though there's so many resistances, then he will be loaded up to the brim, especially with an Infinity Edge and the Zeal ready to go.
It's not the only lane that's going to be suffering as well. For the other side, JDG, their top lane continues to push in. And even with that kill, it doesn't matter here for Changhong because the Ryze just has so much better trading at this point in the game. Riptail picked up for JDG in the top lane. Bottom lane, as mentioned before, drops down. But take your eyes away from that, ladies and gentlemen, because the top side is where I want to look. And even in the mid as we watch this again.
Yeah, they go for the hard engage, especially with Mark coming in first. And they have 3 members, so they think that a 3v2 is well worth it. They have no idea that Imp ran mid instead of bottom. And with 4 against 3, it was their game to win. Even though there was a Kindred ulti that saved them for a little bit, what really can you do when you got all of these members bearing down on you, especially the Lissandra and the Vayne?
Yeah, true. It could have gone so much worse as well. Mark able to get his way out before giving the 4th kill over to Imp. Now this game, I can finally start talking about AD carries. This game, it feels so relevant with the slow acceleration of the top and mid. This game, I'm ready to talk about Imp's Vayne, who has Blade of the Ruined King, has a pickaxe in inventory as well, and is about to get this party started.
Yeah, and he's also got a very funny Ninja Tabi in his kit because he wants to counter the damage coming out from Xiaopeng.
I mean,
and also
so does
GALA.
GALA, though.
Yeah, GALA's one. I mean, you can reason it into the fact that Imp is going to be the primary person to deal with it. Oh, no. That's a Feels Batman moment.
It is. Riptail getting challenged down in the mid lane as well now. Does this make a difference? I feel like it might.
Yeah, I mean, it's before 14 minutes, so if nothing else is going to be...
I mean, the blue resetting, I feel like, makes a difference, Preachers.
It does.
It's going to get a full charge off. Probably would have anyway. Riptail is just having a good time as caught out in the mid lane again. There's another Lamb's Respite from Xiaopeng, but even after he heals up, he should die. Bursted down by Yagao. This is a quick kill, and Riptail will get another charge.
And now, the 2 members of SinoDragons, there's just 2 guys having a good time. Here's a re-engage.
If Flawless popped on out, this is a rocket jump. GALA flashes
Right
over.
back.
Questionable here from the AD carries. JDG decides that's enough for the push. Summoner burnt in the AD carry, and Riptail gets the turret to half.
Yeah, but that was already 1 charge off, which if you take a look at it, was way too much damage to deal with. Even though it doesn't have turret plating, the second turret, if you can bust it down so early on, especially before the 20-minute mark, you get a free avenue down onto the Baron.
Yeah, you do. And with that turret pushing top lane as well, it sets up the Baron even further. JDG this time having the push out in the mid lane means they get the Infernal. Denied double from SDG. Big objectives being taken here by JDG. And Flawless, it just comes back to, okay, he loses out early, but Xiaopeng stops his activity after those first couple of ganks. The game slows down, and it always seems to work in JDG's favor.
Yeah, so they pick it up when the game starts to slack. If you check out the wards that you have on the map, top lane is completely warded out, so Zoom cannot really be ganked unless there's some creative pathing. And bottom side is absolutely littered with red wards, which means that Jingdong is having the time of their life in terms of determining where exactly Xiaopeng will walk onto the map and simply avoid it.
He's around the top side at the moment towards Zoom. I think Xiaopeng was either trying to flop over the wall or get somewhere near it, but might just pick up the turret instead and keeping that momentum alive. So moments ago I said, talking about slowing the game down. Of course, JDG picked up that big fight and was definitely high-paced, but SinoDragons trying to match that now with the top lane turret, who is still almost 2,000 gold ahead.
Yeah, and it's working out very well for SinoDragon, even though the game has slowed down, just because they've got the better scaling. So if they can hold on to this 2k lead and not let it go over to the side of Jingdong, then they should be very well prepared for mid-game team fights. That is if they group, but Lumao, what are you doing here, buddy?
I mean, he has the ability to turn around, so even though it's a 2k gold lead here for SinoDragon, there's a potential to turn it around as everyone collapsing on in. Lumao pops the ultimate here. Winter's Bite will not be completed with the concussive blows, and as Zoom deters this fight even further, JDG Just burning the ultimate and nothing much more.
Yeah, they just want to deter these fights from happening as much as possible. Eventually, you'll have to deal with the split push potential in both Yagao and Zoom, and that's starting to tick up very massively. Check out their inventories, Hysterics. You've got the Seraphs nearly being complete from the Archangels over on the top side, and you've already got the dash cannon coming out from the mid lane as well. So both of these two champions well on their way to full clearing waves with one rotation.
Archangels as well is going to be completed very, very soon. Zoom been in heavy trades earlier on. It's actually 20 CS up over his lane opponent, but because we see a Klepto Gangplank once again from Changhong, means that gold is going to be pretty much even. Not too surprised about mid lane there, considering that Yagao has been at the forefront, picking up 2 kills in this early game. But what you should be surprised is the fact that the Vayne is feeling good this early on as well. Xiaopeng bucked over the wall. He just pops back over. Lumao has to flash in the end. Remember, no ultimate as was burned before.
Yeah, and it's not just feeling fine, it's also looking fine. Imp's Vayne has played so well inside of this game, tumbling out whenever he needs to and also re-engaging very far forward in relation to his team. I mean, he knows his limits, and he knows his team's limits as well. So I want to see what happens if he doesn't get engaged on and he has the freedom to roam.
Well, I mean, you saw before, has the final hour available. This time has the Gwinsu's Rage Blade as his second item. Imp is level 10. That Trouble Bubble, sneaky does it here from Twila. But Flawless was arching for a flank around the side. You see the deep vision there. Control ward placed very close to Wolves, near the brush as well. Top side is being fully controlled here by JDG while they're leaving Zoom on an island at level 11.
Look, all of the vision has completely been shifted. So 3 minutes ago, it was all along the bottom side. Control ward on the bottom side tells you that here's the TP.
There's no wave clear here from JDG, but in the headbutt pulverize, Lumao takes the fight instead. Teleport already came in from Yagao, knocked on down. Lumao's already gone, that's their front line, but SDG are in a choke. Not a good place to be with Yagao. Not a good place to be with Zoom. The ultimate Lance Respite is down, keeping Xiaopeng alive, but for how long? As JDG collapse on in, Imp is rolling and tumbling and flying through the fight. GALA tries to turn it around, but Imp is free-firing. Give him a triple kill, give Yagao the others, and you give JDG the ace.
That is exactly what you need in this game. Imp was just waiting for the time that his team gets engaged on when the person being engaged on is not named Imp. Take a look at his Vayne. He barely took any damage inside of that entire fight because nobody on the side of SinoDragons could have realistically reached him. That was a massive play coming out, and it was just slow baiting back.
6-1 and 3, 1,000 gold bounty. He already had the 2 items. Let's watch him as he goes back. But he's going to get the solo turret gold down in the bottom lane as well, or at least just put some damage down on it and pick up the wave. A Vayne at 18 minutes with an Infernal Dragon does this. And you say, how did it bloody happen?
And watch this, because right now we have to see SinoDragons transition into the bottom side jungle. They walk there because they need to disengage from the turret, but they're caught by Zoom. And while they're frantically trying to split themselves apart, Imp is just running in and says, this is my fight because nobody's focusing me. Nobody's focusing on anything rather than running away. And I can just free fire because if people are running, I run faster.
I mean, GALA did a lot of work in that fight as well. Just followed Zoom and meant he was out of the fight for so long. And JDG capitalized on that pretty swiftly as Yagao might be caught out here again. Trying to turn on Xiaopeng, he can't do it. Ultimate was burned there as well. Big shutdown, big gold bounty back over to the Kindred. And positioning here perfect from SinoDragon to capitalize further on the top lane turret.
Yeah, Yagao's not at the stage at which he can start split pushing quite yet. He can't even 1v1 the Kindred, so that was a little bit of a fumble. And because there's a death timer onto the mid lane who has so many of the resources on Jingdong, they can easily push down this turret.
Arguably here could be a big trade-off as Imp into GALA. The Tristana is scared. Of course, when you have a QSS on Imp, it means that even Mark can't really do much to him with concussive blows. But JDG picking up objectives across the map where they can. That's Zoom opening the turret. A turret for a turret here. Big trade-offs, but this was not one of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at this play, it was very well done coming out from Xiaopeng. However, I have to critique what the team does after the solo 1v1, jumping around the whole place, because they don't go backwards towards the Baron. They don't set up any vision for themselves. You take a look at the 2 solitary wards over on the top side. That's not enough to figure out when JDG are rolling towards them. They can't use that to bait around the Baron, and sooner or later, especially within the next 2 minutes, they need to set that up.
What I love about this composition, though, is it feels like you need Imp to start the Baron. So if you see that Vayne on the map, you're feeling okay. The only other player you'd say, well, Zoom might be able to help solo it out with 3 to 4 members.
Oh, here we go.
We'll see what happens now. Maybe I'm wrong. No, Imp is in there. Maybe I'm right. JDG completely blind. A big misnomer here from SinoDragon that it wouldn't be taken. 20-minute Baron. Is this Dan Gaming? Not quite, but it is a Baron for JDG.
And what exactly happened over there? SinoDragons were respecting too much the re-engage potential from the Jarvan and also from the Lissandra, and because they do so, and they don't even check the Baron pit because they don't want to commit anything towards that side of the map, they lose out the Baron without even knowing it was started.
Big move there from JDG. Rough from SinoDragon, who had Colonel's full attention until then.
I was talking about the fact that SinoDragons, they needed to get the vision down onto that part of the map while they got the pick and also the turret. They failed to do it, and as a result, they completely lose out on the Baron. If you just had one ward in that pit, literally one.
Yeah, but what's going to happen here? Because SinoDragon have gone for Flawless and said now Zoom is nearby, but can he get it there in time with the Realm Warp? He keeps pushing out the wave. Zoom doesn't care. The jungler goes down and SinoDragon are collapsing on him. But he's still in the lane.
Yeah, what exactly is he doing?
Oh, okay. He's going to back with Baron buff. I guess that's that too. Doesn't want to commit to the 2v3. It's very fair considering that the time wasted means Yagao helps get this top lane turret and might actually just push it down.
Yeah, and it looks like it was more of a martyr play coming out from Flawless because he dies in order to buy time for the rest of his team. Bottom lane was pushing, top lane was pushing. Yagao manages to get that turret, and even though bottom lane didn't fall, they still net get a positive for it.
JDG able to clear out some of that vision around the Baron side as well, the deeper vision that SinoDragon might need. Mark and Twila moving up towards Yagao, but Yagao in a comfortable position now in the Lissandra matchup. Has the item advantage over Twila. Natural gold here for JDG keeps piling up. Baron buff is going to expire in 2 minutes, and not much has been taken, but leaving Imp and Loom out in the mid lane means Yagao has freedom and knows that there's going to be a quick rotation.
And huge eyes onto the mini-map, because we're seeing the 1-3-1 come into absolute fruition, especially with the Baron buff. That is what these two teams want to do. I mean, at the very least, Jingdong. They're pushing in so deep. And the one person who you need to watch in order to facilitate this is Flawless, because it's not really a 1-3-1 as much as it is a 1-2-1, where Flawless is roaming around everywhere on the map to make sure that whoever needs the attention gets it.
Zoom up against this turret as well, going to get the attention of Flawless. Flawless is a level behind Xiaopeng still, but this won't matter in the 2v1 onto the bottom lane. Zoom waiting for the next wave to come in, and there is no way the Gangplank can stop this. Zoom, get out of turret range. There we go. He's going to pick this up.
And that was absolutely free. Changhong has to go back because he doesn't know where exactly Flawless is or whether he's going to get engaged or not. The route would have been absolutely devastating coming out from the Ryze. And right now, these teams, they're simply using the Baron buff to their advantage. No fights needed.
Well, you can see the priority that JD are providing. They might want to start one of those fights with the Baron buff, but they're taking down all the inner turrets, leaving their 1-3-1 in effect, maybe backing away as with 40 seconds left of the Baron, they've pretty much picked up enough, just not an inhibitor turret, which is still good news for SinoDragons.
Yeah, and free turrets all around, but when you check the gold difference, Hysterics, it's not actually that far ahead for JD Gaming. I mean, you've got 1k difference between the two teams, and even though that Baron buff did a whole lot of good work for them, it's still even. At the very least, in terms of what exactly these two teams can do, you need to look at the where it's distributed in order to really check that out. There's a 0-5 Jarvan coming out from Jingdong, so you're not really looking out for that. You're looking out for the engages more than anything else. He's already got the stone plate, so he even knows that. And everybody else is really playing around either Yagao or Imp.
Look at the 90% kill participation. That tells enough of a story for me on Flawless's Jarvan. We'll see if he moves towards the bottom side, because that is the natural progression here for both teams. Infernal coming up in 1 minute. There's already an Infernal on each team, so double would be huge. Meaning the gold value kind of blows out of proportion for one of those teams, or at least equals up if you're SinoDragon. And Wave's pushing towards that top side. Look at where Twila is with Cleanse. Infernal Dragon coming up in 45 seconds. He's going to have to clear that wave quickly and start moving now.
And we also need to see just exactly how JD deal with this.
I don't know what Changhong was doing. Took a while to respond there. Cataclysm's back on down floors. Will he die before getting out? Yes, he will. Some reason Zoom can't get into the fight in time. Now Xiaopeng into Luomao. The Lamb's Respite this time perfect. Changhong is still alive. And somehow the front line of Mark survives long enough. Zoom can't get into the fight. He's getting pushed on out. But Overload comes back in. And it's Imp again on the Vayne with Yagao, who somehow cleans out SinoDragons. It was looking so rough for JDG. But core members again come to the rescue.
They absolutely blasted away Hysterics. That was pretty much a show of what Zoom can do, even with no resources to his name, even though he's been the primary focus coming out from SinoDragons to make sure that he doesn't really get ahead. He still manages to find such a good team fight, and now he is well and truly in his element.
I mean, look at Yagao. He's trying to force their Gangplank all the way away. JDG can't end, but Yagao still very annoying. Changhong can't back either. Potential for a 1v1 still here if Yagao can get the Glacial Path over the wall, and he can. Waiting for the ultimate. Realm Warp's coming in as well. Changhong hasn't been back to base. He doesn't know what home's like. He's living in a different world. And Zoom is going to send him right back to that home in a very different way.
Yeah, he's sent back in a casket because that was a very classic engage coming back out from Zoom. It was a do-or-die situation. I mean, the best thing that Changhong could have done was 1v1 Yagao.
You know what I love about this play is, we'll take a look at it again, but Changhong might be down for Baron.
Yeah, and look, this looks so good for JD, but in the end, it wasn't actually helpful because the Cataclysm locked Zoom out. But even though this is a 4v5, the Kindred ultimate gives enough time for JD members to run back over here, and you need to keep your eyes on Zoom being the flank. He takes so much damage, but the Seraphs, as well as the Overload, keeps him alive.
Imp and Yagao to clean that up as well. I love how Changhong's pinky toe just touched the edge of Lamb's Respite, and he was in. Mark might be caught out here as well. JDG rotating around. Flawless is here. Wait for the flag and drag. Cataclysm down instead first. Still has that knock-up combination. Yao hit with a Sleepy Trouble Bubble on the side with Glacial Fissure down too. Flawless has to flash out. Over-committing there for JDG's jungler. He's very low as Twila jumps all the way back in. Trouble Bubble lands again with a flash forward from Yagao. Ambitious, I'd say, but he can't survive long enough to even kill Mark. The snipe down from Zoom. A 1-for-1 trade is big, but it's support for mid laner, and that'll stop the Baron in SinoDragons' favor.
Yeah, SinoDragons at the very least disengage what could have been a very threatening second Baron.
Well, we're not stopping here. Twila doesn't want to take it up, though, as Lumao starts zoning.
Yeah, so the question here that we need to ask is, what implication does this exactly have going into their next few games on their schedules? Because both of these two teams, they needed to show a very, very strong game, a very strong match within this series. However, it kind of looks as if they're finding picks more off of the enemy being in the wrong positioning, which speaks very ill. I still think that there's time for them to catch up if there is potentially a third game, even within this game, but they need to just tighten up their plays and at the very least not get caught out anymore.
Pretty hard as well with the composition you have, not to force and make
I mean, yeah, look, it's not an easy task. It is very difficult.
Definitely not, especially around Baron now. This is where Mistake Central comes into capitalization. JDG still 3k gold ahead, but you can see SinoDragons slowly moving up, clearing this vision. JDG maybe preparing for a flank, but it's just Flawless sitting in the pit, and Changhong won't be able to clear that ward as he started out the Baron, but Lumao sitting over the wall with flash available.
Yeah, and more importantly, here's the Realm Warp.
Yeah, more importantly, the Realm Warp is here. They can't find anything though. Lumao, run faster. Glacial Pass in. Yagao gets trouble bubbled. Zoned all the way out. Here comes a Paddlestar. Yagao at half health. Now the re-engage from SinoDragon, as they know everyone is walking away. Lumao wants to turn back around. He flashes, eventually gets the pulverization. The flash away from GALA, but he has the range over the wall. Free firing is Flawless. Locks on down with another Cataclysm. Now watch for him, because in the final hour, he's free hitting a Tumble Dumble, and see you later. Dumbledore dies as well. Oh, that's a spoiler, but never mind. Imp still forward, finds another triple kill in the game, and Tumble Dumble or no, it's still magic.
Why would you do that to me, Hysterics? You spoiled it. However, Imp coming up massive in that fight. He was chasing people around with his final hour, didn't take any damage again. You have to take a look back over both of these two games in this series to see just how much work he did to avoid all damage.
Imp had played a very good series. Game 1 was subtle, but Game 2, 11-1-7 on the AD carry. And I said Imp was back. Game 2 on the Vayne situates this nicely as JDG clean house with SinoDragon in 2-0 fashion.
And who even needs a new Infinity Edge? She went for the Standard Blade, the Ruin King. Check out that game coming out from Jingdong. It was a little bit rocky, especially seeing as they got caught out a few times within it. Not the most defining 2-0 that they've had inside of the LPL, but they still walk away with a very happy victory that they needed.
Super rough. SinoDragon always fighting from an unequal standpoint, still with a gold lead, with momentum on their side. They just couldn't work that into their mid-game.
Yeah, unfortunately, it just didn't quite work out for them. I mean, they tried as best they could to neutralize the 1-3-1, but with the first Baron, it was really hard to do.
It's really hard as well, because SinoDragon's still a fresh squad from LDL. This is their first LPL split. They've made heads or tails of some of their games, but a lot of the time, they have been stronger. And you can see the difference between them and JDG. JDG still need to refine their style. They still need to refine their gameplay, I guess you could say. But Zoom and Yagao, that one thing remains the same. Even Lumao there, you see they've got the components of the team they used to be, and they're making it work here in Spring. And
they just brought in even better parts for the ones that unfortunately departed their roster.
Oh, even better parts. Preacher, Clint, Loken, I don't know about
all right, look, I might not say cleared, but Imp is definitely performing very well for his team. If you check out the damage charts, yeah, there's no real question about why exactly he topped it. Of course, over on the other side, it was the game of Xiaopeng's life, but it wasn't really for the rest of his teammates. He performed very well, but it still was a JD victory simply because of the fact that multiple lanes were pushing. The first Baron really defined it, and the second was a nail.
I mean, it tells you in 20 minutes doing the Baron then. One mistake cost it. But you see that big topsy-turvy spin-off there from JDG and SinoDragon. And that really tells the story of SinoDragon. If Xiaopeng is able to continue that lead like we see him on the Nidalee, then it's a very different story. He got an early lead this game, wasn't able to facilitate as stronger players we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and look, that would be my favorite spin-off, the fact that he won because he picked the individual champions, but unfortunately it wasn't meant to be. That's simply fan fiction because he played the stock standard. He's coming into 9.4, he wants to really figure out this patch, figure out what exactly he can do, and he plays it a bit too safe in terms of the champions.
I mean, more or less, we have the same thing here in the LPL. What I see so far, I don't see anything different.
No.
Really the same. We've seen Vayne more than once, you know, we've seen the Kai'Sa. So far, I see a rinse and repeat from 9.2 from the LPL, so there's nothing really seems to figure out here for SinoDragon, except maybe how they go, considering that FPX is next, and that is going to be hard.
Yeah, I mean, their strength of schedule looks more like a weakness for them right now, because that defining loss is only going to be even harder for them as it gets dug into them from FPX. I mean, we've seen the top of the ladder team do extremely well against some of these newcomers as well, because they simply say, with our expert mid laner who's making all the shot calls, yeah, this could be very difficult for Sino.
But still, for 5 rookies, there's a good amount of progression here in the first split. Still in playoff, you know, potential. There's definitely not out. In fact, they're looking pretty good to maybe secure that 8th spot. Remember, contesting with teams like Suning, who are not doing well, contesting with teams like, depends how BLG go with their strength of schedule, the word you've heard a million times, and how the rest of these teams like V5 kind of shape up as well. So for SinoDragons, still very much in the mix, but it's hard against JDG when you consider, right, Zoom and Yagao are playing on form, and Flawless, even after a pretty rough early game, is able to recover like that.
Yeah, I mean, Flawless just did so well, even though he was up against Xiaopeng, who got a massive lead. I mean, if you see him in your jungle, you would just run away. You would say, okay, look, this entire part of the jungle, it's yours, so I'll just go over to the other side. You know, you get 3/4 and I'll get 1. And it kind of looks as if instead of playing towards that, he waited patiently to see where exactly Xiaopeng showed, and then he tried to gank other parts of the map.
It's super rough as well, but Flawless made it work at 25 minutes. That Baron fight that we're about to take a quick look at was the defining moment where, okay, first Baron was already there, and then we saw the second one, and we're like, hang on a minute, what happened here?
Yeah, and this was just a classic catch-out. It looks so good for Jingdong, but Flawless gets caught and locks Zoom out. Despite all of that, you still need to keep an eye on where exactly they flank around in this situation. Imp is going through the front way, and Zoom is going through the side way. And combined between both of these, the fact that they're focusing Zoom and not killing him gives Imp the free fire potential to just take down every
Imp just flashed into the pit of red.
Yeah.
I mean, that man is insane.
And nobody really followed him, so it was pretty much just him versus
because they're like, no, Imp's not going to flash into the middle of the pit.
Why would you? You see Zoom on low health, you chase him, and all of a sudden Imp just takes you down from the side.
You see a Zoe, and you go, no, I'm not going into that fight. But Imp says yes. There's a big question mark as to whether Imp is back in form, especially since his days on LGD, his, you know, brief moments where you're like, okay, Imp, what's going on, man? You know, you're working with POAL, what the hell is happening? And now it's more like, okay, Imp is feeling this. He's actually worked really well into this roster.
Yeah, exactly. It's the resources available from this roster. They allow him to flourish. Everybody else is taking so much aggro, which means that he doesn't need to be the sole focus for his team. And that means that even if he does get taken down, which we saw a little bit in the very first game, it still means that his team has damage. I mean, his team can always do well without him, so he's more like an accessory. And when you put Imp in a position which he doesn't have to carry, it turns out that he does carry.
Yeah, no, anyway, it's the Kai'Sa, it's the Vayne. 9.4 showed absolutely no difference on those 80 carries so far for Imp. GALA was heated up in the matchup purely because of how GALA has been playing. GALA has had very good stats to back him. He's now played 2 games of the Tristana, and you go, right, Tristana was okay, but very hot on the trigger like Imp, except maybe at the wrong time.
Yeah, and look, the rocket jumps They're a great accessory, especially if you're trying to jump out. You know, you can kill somebody, jump out, kill somebody, and then jump out again because people are trying to engage onto you. But all of his ones were very aggressive. He was going to the front line, and especially to an Alistar. I mean, he just got headbutted away every single time.
Rocket jumps in. He's like, man, I'm going to get headbutted out.
Over into the Wraith pit. Yeah, didn't quite work out for him.
Super rough, especially when you're going up against our MVP of game number 2, which, of course, is Imp. 11-1-7 on that Vayne. And you know what? Put that finger a little bit higher. Shh.
He's trying to silence all of the critics.
He's literally about to kill someone. That's about
You're
what's
right.
going to happen. And you know what? They agree with us as well. Vayne was a great pick for Imp, and let me tell you, it has been pretty good so far.
And look, everybody keeps on saying if you pick Vayne in any sort of competitive league, then you are pretty cocky. But if anybody were to do it...
Vayne has a weak laning phase, says Double Lift. Yeah. You know what? You look at our pen pals of the Rift, right? Vayne has a weak laning phase. Now, that might be true in theory and in practice, but on the LPL, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, it doesn't even matter how well you do in the laning phase. So long as you don't fall behind too much, your jungler provides assistance, just means that you can go into fights.
That's exactly right. However, we are going to go to an extended break because we have Rogue Warriors and V5 coming up next. Enjoy our top 5 while you wait for this long extended break, but we'll be back with our second series after that.
打这里，来卡一下，显身直接上来打。哇，这个小孩看不懂，哇！这再一个大招，看再一个闪现，小大招回避没有回避到。
Top 虽然游走一波上路，但是 VG 刚好布防成功。可是下面中路瑞兹被球头一个大招炸偏了以后，3个人打下了一个围殴。
哎，这波要开了，这边只有3个人。
后面奈特进场成功了，火箭腰带之后给了一个大招，人冰起来酒桶，再一个大招不让你走。塔姆及时架起了灰盾到底，最后还是被击杀。
这3件装备出来的时候，拓普一定要球团了。来大招直接开，
大道，然后直接吹风加狂风绝息斩，
秒掉了。大招被开出来，而且大招
要闪现了，闪现过去之后呢，这个威力非常的强，这也是瞬间被融化，融化以后留在后面，牛头应该走不了。前面希沃尔也倒了，这一波是一个 S 呀。
看一下绕后的一个 GP， 正面来了，牛头是有闪现的，这个位置不错的，这个位置不错，但是已经被视野看到了，又看到了斯科的，凯南完美的一个进场，正面打一个伤害了。 库尔玛这边先秒到那个辛德拉，后续的话现在也被秒了。哇，直接到后面来切，秒了呀！这边拿下3杀，正面这边没有任何伤害，辛苦也被秒。